I hadn't seen that house in almost 15 years. When I stepped out of the taxi, the front gate creaked like it remembered my footsteps. Everything smelled of dust and hibiscus and time. My father was standing at the door, thinner, quieter, and somehow smaller than I remembered. He smiled, but not the kind of smile that welcomes you. More like one that forgives you for taking too long. He said, "You didn't have to come." And I said, "I know," but we both knew I did. After my mother passed away, the house had fallen silent. Neighbors said he hardly spoke, and maybe that's why I came. To take care of him, or maybe to take care of what was left of us. Inside, everything looked the same, except older. The curtains faded, the clocks out of sync, and the air carrying a kind of sadness that sticks to the walls. And then there was that door, the one at the end of the hall, still locked, still off limits. I remembered being 10, asking what was behind it. My father's voice had echoed down the corridor. "Don't go in there. It's your brother's room. It stays closed." That was the last time his name was spoken in that house. Days settled into a rhythm. Morning tea, medicine at 9, quiet lunches, and long evenings that seemed to never end. He sat by the window most of the day, watching the road. We hardly spoke. When we did, it was about groceries, electricity bills, or the neighbor's barking dog. Once, when I asked if he'd eaten, he said, "I'm old, not helpless. Old pride. It never ages." Sometimes I caught him staring at the locked door. He'd turn away quickly, as if embarrassed by the memory. Once I asked gently, "Do you ever think about him?" He said, "There's nothing to think about." Then he walked away. But silence never hides the truth. It only delays it. One afternoon, while cleaning the cupboard, I found a photograph. My brother and me sitting under the mango tree. Him holding a paper kite. Me laughing. Behind it, in my mother's handwriting, summer 1998, the year before everything changed. That night, I dreamed of that summer. How my brother used to draw late into the night, music playing softly from his radio. How father would shout, "You'll never make a living with that nonsense." And how mother used to say, "Let him dream, at least while he can." He left the house when he was 19. Or maybe he was sent away. The next week, his name was erased from every conversation. When I asked about him years later, my father said, "He made his choice." But choices are never that simple, are they? One morning, the old neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, stopped by with some soup. She looked around the living room and sighed. "Your mother used to fill this house with laughter," she said. Then, almost whispering, "You know, your brother wrote to her once, after he left." I froze. "What do you mean? He wrote?" Mrs. Ellis nodded. "Yes, a letter. I delivered it myself. Your father burned it." The words hit like wind through broken glass. That evening, I sat with my father at dinner. I wanted to ask, but he looked tired, so I waited until the plates were cleared. Finally, I said, "I know about the letter." He didn't look up. After a long pause, he said, "Some things are better left unread." "No," I said quietly, "some things are only lived if they're read." He didn't reply. He just got up and walked slowly toward the end of the hall, stood before the locked door, and for the first time in years, I saw his shoulders shake. The next morning, he handed me a small rusty key. "Go on," he said, his voice rough. "You wanted to know." The key felt heavier than it should. I walked to the end of the hall, each step an echo of years we both avoided. When I turned the key, the lock resisted and gave in with a sigh. The smell hit first. Dust, old paper, maybe sadness. The curtains were drawn, the bed still made. Sketches covered the walls, faces, cities, oceans. My brother's world, frozen in pencil lines. On the desk was a notebook. Inside, half-finished drawings, some of me, some of our parents, and one of the house itself. The hall stretching endlessly toward a closed door. At the back of the drawer lay a cassette tape, labeled "For Later." I brought the tape to my father. He looked at it for a long time, then whispered, "Your mother recorded that before she got sick." I pressed play. Her voice filled the quiet room, gentle, worn, trembling a little. "If you're hearing this, it means you came back. I always hoped you would. Don't be angry with him. He only knew one way to love, by trying to protect you from everything, even yourself. He lost his son to pride and his daughter to silence. But he loves you, and I hope you can love him even if it's too late to say it out loud." When the tape stopped, my father was crying quietly. I'd never seen him cry. He said, "I kept the room locked because I couldn't bear to see what I'd done." We sat together for a long time, no words, no apologies, just two people breathing in the same grief. That night, I left the door open. In the morning, the house felt lighter, as if it had finally exhaled. Before I left for the city again, I looked down the hallway. The door at the end wasn't a wound anymore. It was just a door, open, quiet, and at peace. And I thought to myself, maybe houses don't keep secrets. Maybe they just wait for someone to listen. Love doesn't always speak. Sometimes it waits, in a letter never read, a door never opened, a word never said. And when we finally find the courage to listen, we realize it was never too late, just long overdue.